Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing something a bit different. Initially, I was going to be making a Dragunity combo guide because that archetype got all their new cards revealed out of Terminal World 3, and that set comes out today. I also always get a lot of requests from people to upload a combo video on archetypes that get new support. The reason why is that I upload a lot of different archetypes on my channel. If you've seen my channel before, whenever an archetype gets new support, I always upload a video immediately. This is because I just really enjoy combo theory in Yu-Gi-Oh! So whenever a new card comes out, I was already doing that on my own, so I decided to make some videos on it. Apparently people really like that too because I always get a ton of comments for people asking for more. That's pretty much how my channel started. On top of the combo guide, another thing that I always get a ton of requests for are for duel replays. I personally find those videos really boring because there's no commentary and there's just a bunch of music in the back for 15 to 20 minutes. Me personally, whenever I watch a video, I want to learn something. I want to learn how to play a new deck or some new combos that I never thought of. You don't really get that out of a duel replay video. On top of that, there's also a ton of people who upload replay duels. I'm not even joking, there are so many replay channels on YouTube. There's gotta be at least 6 or 7 that I always see in my feed. So me just adding to that really isn't gonna do anything, but like I said, people keep asking me for replay duels. I figured if you guys like it, I can make more, but like I said, there's already a ton of people who make these, so I wasn't too thrilled to make this video. However, one thing different is that I won't be putting any music in the background. I'll be doing some commentary and explaining what I thought when I was playing this duel. Some of these duels were also pretty cool, especially 2 of them. I really enjoyed 2 duels in specific. So I'll be going over what I thought when I was playing these duels. Also, my deck list has been up the entire time I was doing my intro. A bunch of people always ask me for a deck list, so if you're one of those people, here it is. Just know between duels, I was kind of shifting some cards around just because after testing out the cards in these duels, I like some of them more or less, so I decided to make some changes. I'll explain what these changes are at the end. So one unique thing about my Dragunity build that you probably already noticed is I'm not using cards like Darkness Metal, Zephyros, Lubellion. I understand why people want to play those cards because they're very powerful, but in my testing, they just made the deck so much brickier and worse. The key to success in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is about optimization and deck building. The top tier decks in the meta aren't the best decks in the meta because they make the strongest board in their combos. Those decks are the best because they're consistent. Those decks have a lot of one card combos, they play through a lot of hand traps, and they also run a ton of hand traps. This is how I want to play Dragunity. I want to optimize it as much as I can. I made a video series before talking about optimizing Dragon Link and how to get the most out of your cards while playing the least amount of bricks. That's pretty much how I want to take Dragunity. I want to play the lowest amount of bricks that I can get away with. That means I don't want to play Red Eyes, I don't want to play Zephyros. I understand that makes the combos so much better. However, the trade-off there is that it makes the deck brickier and worse because you have to play so many garnets in your deck. I would rather take the weaker combo board over the stronger combo board if it means I get to play less bricks in my deck. Anyways, let's get into the duels now. Here's duel number 1. So for duel number 1, I get to go first, and that's pretty amazing, especially because I opened pretty good. I have Remus and Terraforming, which is really nice. Not only that, but I also opened 3 hand traps, so I feel pretty safe here. Even if I can't make a really big board and I get hand trapped, I'll be fine. So I lead the turn with Terraforming instead of Remus. It's always better to use Terraforming to bait out a hand trap just because if you show them Remus, they're already going to know what you're playing, but using Terraforming puts up a bit vague sense so they don't know what deck you're running. So now I can Remus after I get hit by Ash, and now I can activate that by sending Nibiru from my hand to the grave. Fuwa and Imperm are definitely a lot better. I'm going to normal summon Karinas because it's by far the best starter in the deck, and I'm going to add Divine Wind here. Because I have Karinas on my field and Remus in the grave, I can do the full anti-Nib combo, which is incredibly good. Nibiru is far too good in this format now. Ever since they removed Apollosa, now every deck is really afraid of Nib, and that card is really good. Even me myself, I'm maining copies of Nib. So here I make the Crystal Wing on my 5th summon, and my opponent does have Nib, so it's always good to do anti-Nib if you can, especially if your opponent only hit you with 1 hand trap. The reason why is that most people always open 2 or 3 hand traps in their opening turn if they're playing a very consistent deck. Whenever I only get hand trapped once in my opening combo and I keep playing the game and I don't see another hand trap, it tells me that the other card in their hand is Nib if they do have another hand trap. It ends up being correct, and you guys should definitely watch out for Nib. If you can ever do anti-Nibiru combos in Dragunity, you should always do that. So this is a pretty good combo. I get anti-Nib, and the best thing about this Romulus combo is that I have Valchion in the grave. This means that I don't have to tribute my Romulus, and if I did, I would have to use 4 monsters to make a Georgius, and that's just pretty terrible. So I made an Atum, and I also summoned Destrudo. This is a card that I was trying out mostly because of Ancient Fairy Dragon. You send Destrudo to the grave, and then you can make an Ancient Fairy, pop that, and get a Divine Wind from your deck. This will mean that you can summon Ancient Fairy, and then you get the Karinas out of your grave and you equip to it. I really don't like that, and I kinda stopped playing Destrudo after this video. Every time I use 2 or more cards in a combo, I always want to anti-Nib Nib, and the Ancient Fairy combo is very weak to Nib, which I don't like. Like I said, now with Apollosa gone, a lot of decks are really weak to Nibiru, and a ton of people are maining the card now. I don't think Dishrudo is terrible if you want to play it, but after this video, I probably wouldn't main the card unless something changes. This combo is pretty good though. As you can see, I'm not using cards like Red Eyes or Zephyros. As I said before, those cards are incredibly bricky, and I don't ever want to play them in my deck again if I can make that choice. All those cards do is help you make a bit of a stronger board, but they don't help you play the game, and it makes your deck a lot more bricky and inconsistent. I don't like that. I'd rather play a bunch of hand traps to make my deck a lot better when I have to go second. So the combo I get out of here is pretty good. I get a Savage Dragon, a Crystal Wing, an Auxilla, and a Georgius. This means I have a Spell and Trap negate, a Monster negate, an Omni negate, and a Counter Trap Omni negate. That is incredibly important because it means we're also safe from Dark Ruler no more. A ton of people disrespect that card, and it couldn't be me because that card is way too powerful. Now my opponent activates a really strong card here. This is a brand new one called Illusion Gate. It destroys my entire board and then take a monster from my grave and summon it. I use Georgius to negate that, but they also have Droplet, which is why it's very important to have a counter trap here. This is why I always tell people it's very important for a combo deck to always have a way to beat Dark Ruler no more and other spell cards that monsters can't respond to. If I didn't have Auxilla here, I definitely would have lost my entire board. A really cool thing about Georgius is that when he negates, Lewin goes to the grave, but then it will just re-equip itself onto him. Anyways, my opponent opened broken here. They had Ash, Nib, Harp Horror, Engraver. They also had Droplet and Illusion Gate. They opened the God Hand versus me, and it's honestly pretty insane. So I would say this was a pretty good first game. It shows you how consistent this deck is. This is because we don't have to play cards like Red Eyes, Zephyros, and all those other bricks. Now we get to play a ton more hand traps in our deck, and it makes our deck a lot better when we have to go second. So for game number 2, I'm up against Constellar, and unfortunately I have to go second. Going second against Constellar is really bad because ever since I got their new support, they've become a very scary deck. Not only does this deck have a bunch of 1-card starters, but a bunch of extenders too. However, the worst thing about fighting this deck is that they have a 1-card turn skip FTK. The worst part was they opened Caster, who's the card that facilitates the 1-card turn skip FTK. Fortunately for me, I have 2 hand traps, a Fuwalos and a Nibiru. Imperm or Ashen, my opening hand would have been so much better. These 2 hand traps that I opened with are actually pretty weak against Constellar. However, the Fuwalos in my hand might be able to get me to an Ash or an Imperm, but unfortunately my opponent has Ash for my Fuwalos. This is really bad for me, but I still have the Nib in my hand and my opponent's playing into my Nib. This is because they don't have a rank 4 that can stop Nibiru, it's only a rank 5, which is Chronomaly by mana. So my opponent is doing the full combo and my Nib is live, so you're probably wondering why I didn't Nib here. I want to wait until they cycle through all their names, because if they do the turn skip FTK, they have to go through all of them. If I Nib too early and they have the E-Telly in their hand, they can keep comboing, which will be very bad for me. So right here off Altair, when they summon Signy, and this is the best time to nib them, so I nib them and they do end up having the E-Telly Stellar Nova Bonds. This is why you have to wait for them to cycle through all their names, because if they still had a monster that they could summon, they could still keep comboing. Now the only monster they have left is the Neb, and they can't continue a combo here. Like I said, this is an incredibly stressful game. If they actually got the turn skip off me, I lost. So now it's my turn to play. They do have a set card that I have to be worried about, but I know the other card in their hand already off the Neb. So I'm going to start here with Carinas just in case it's a card that I can bait out, because I still have the Legatus and Ravine in my hand. If their face down card is a good trap, that's fine, because Carinas will bait it out, and then I still have Ravine. I can Ravine for Remus, and then I have Remus Legatus, so I'm going to be fine. My opponent, however, doesn't activate their face down card, so instead I just get to put Divine Lance onto my Carinas, and then I get to special summon Legatus. Here's a really cool effect that people forget about Legatus, is that he's also randomly MST. I get to destroy that card, and it was just a bluff dud. Either way, I just wanted to be safe, and I was going to get rid of the card anyways. Carinas was going to force out the card's activation anyway, so if it was a card that got rid of Carinas, that's fine because I still have Legatus and Ravine. So this game was incredibly stressful. I was really worried my opponent was going to have a Crosslet Designator or even a Qualified, but they still have the Ash for my Fuwalos. This is also why Nib is so important. When people get greedy and they don't go for the anti-Nib combos, you can really punish them. Now granted, they wanted to go for the turn skip FTK because if they just resolve that, the game is over. I think they also felt really safe about it because they also got rid of one of my hand traps, and they also have the Stellar Nova Bond to act as an E-Telly just in case I have an Ash or something. This means that they could play around whatever hypothetical hand trap I had, but I had Nibiru. This means that they could play around potential Ash or Veiler from me and still get the turn skip FTK. However, Nibiru really saved me here, and it just shows you how strong Nibiru is. So many people are maining the card now that Apollosa is banned, and I think that will only increase as time goes on. Nib is super good now that combo decks don't have generic monster negates like Apollosa they can put up under 5 summons. This is what makes Dragunity so unique. They can always put up a negate by their 5th summon. As you can see, I'm doing my full powerful combo here because I know my opponent has nothing they can do to stop it. I know the last card in their hand, it's the card they added off the Nib. Now one important thing is I have to make Crystal Wing here is because if I don't, I have no way to out that Nib token. I realized that while I was playing that I didn't have a card like a Baron or anything to destroy a card, so I'll probably have to consider putting in Baron or even an Ascalon. Baron is probably better, but I just need any card that can get rid of a big monster. Thankfully Crystal Wing has an effect to increase its attack when it battles a level 5 or higher monster. This duel is really fun, but like I said, it was also incredibly stressful. I think a lot of people are going to get caught off guard by the Tellarknight FTK. This FTK is probably the most consistent FTK in all of Yu-Gi-Oh right now. You don't have to play any main deck bricks, you don't have to play any extra deck bricks, you just play the same cards that you normally did, and it's only one caster that makes this combo. I guarantee if they don't ban Ptolemy, people are definitely going to get FTK turn skip. Anyways guys, I'm very happy with this duel. We survived the turn skip FTK and we lived to tell the tale. So now for game number 3, we're going to go up against Malice, which in my opinion is the best deck in Master Duel. We get to go first this time, so now we're going to normal summon Karinus, and this thing gets hit by an Ash Blossom, which is really annoying. I guess it makes sense why Karinus always gets hand trapped, but I swear this thing never resolves. This is why it's not too bad to play more copies of the other Dragunity spell cards because Karinus is almost never going to resolve by himself. So here's a really cool thing about this combo. A lot of the time people equip Falchion onto Karinus and bounce it back to their hand and summon it, but this time I'm going to get access to Remus instead. I'm going to bounce it back to my hand, but instead of summoning, I'm going to get a search for Dragon Ravine. This is because I want to show off the Ancient Fairy Dragon combo. This combo is really cool because now you can get access to Dragunity Divine Wind without searching off Karinus. The one thing I don't like about this combo though is the fact that you have to play Destrudo and the fact that it doesn't play around Nib. I said before that all 1.5 card combos and 2 card combos in Dragunity from now on should play around Nib. I couldn't do that in this duel because I already got hit by 2 hand traps, so I'm running out of resources here. The only hand trap that I can't play around here is Nib, but if I have a different hand trap, I'm gonna be fine. Since I have Remus in the grave, I can play around another hand trap like Baylor, but if they have Nibiru, then I'm in a lot of trouble. So I'm able to resolve the Divine Wind combo, which is really cool, and my opponent luckily doesn't have Nib. If my opponent had Nib after all those, I would be pretty sad. So I'm pretty happy to show off the Ancient Fairy Dragon combo because I think it's really cool, but like I said, I don't really think it's worth it anymore. You have to play Ancient Fairy, then you have to play Destrudo, and then you lose out the ability to make anti-Nibiru. It's just quite a lot of resources that I don't really think are worth it in the end, but it's still pretty cool to show off at least once. I'm still kinda iffy on Destrudo, but I don't think I'd play Ancient Fairy Dragon again. Another great thing about this combo is that you can see that we're not missing out on cards such as Lubellion, Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, and Zephyros. Those cards would definitely make the combos better, but these combos are already pretty strong. You're ending on 2 synchro negates, you also get a counter trap negate, and you get Georgius. I would definitely not complain about this because for your opponent to break this, they would need a very specific 4 card combo in their hand to do that. For my opponent to be able to break this board, they would need Illusion Gate, a 1 card starter, and then 2 cards that I can't respond to with monster effects. That could definitely happen, but the chances of that are so low. Pretty much the only thing I miss about Darkness Metal is not even the card's effect. The effect is very good, getting to bring back a dragon from your grave. You would usually get back Gaidirk, and Gaidirk would add and discard a level 4 or lower dragon or wing beast card, usually Samsara Dragon or Zephyros. The thing I like most about Darkness Metal is the fact that the card was a level 10. It was really nice to take a level 2 Phalanx and take your Darkness Metal to make Crimson Dragon. Crimson Dragon was really cool because it let you cheat out your dragon synchros. That was pretty cool because I'm not playing Zephyros anymore, so it's really hard for me to make Barcha. Pretty much what I'd have to do is take one specific Divine Wind combo and summon Karinus off the effect of Divine Wind. That would let me equip Kus to it, and then I unequip Kus and make Barcha. It's just really difficult to make some of the synchros now that I'm not playing Zephyros. Now I am pretty happy that I don't have to play a brick anymore, but I do miss summoning Barcha. The card is incredibly win more, which is something I don't like about it, but it is still a pretty cool card. The biggest issue that Dragunity have is they can't make use of the good generic level 8 synchros. Remus is a really good card, but locking you to Dragon does hurt sometimes because you miss out on some of the good generic level 8 synchros. One of the ones I really do like is Cypher Mode Omega. That card is so cool. It's not even because the card is a hand rip, but it's because the card recycles your resources. That's something I really like. Another card that could have been cool was Adamantipator Risen Dragite. That card can negate a spell or trap as long as you have a water monster in your grave, which you're gonna have thanks to the new Hulk. The problem is that card isn't a dragon, it's a rock, even though it looks like a dragon. Now here my opponent's gonna activate their field spell. I probably should not have negated this. I should have saved this just in case they had another board breaker card. It's not gonna matter in the long run, but letting my opponent put on a field spell and get a monster effect probably was okay. However, I just wanted to negate it just to be sure. Then my opponent's gonna only have 3 cards in their hand, and if I keep trading card economy, I'm just gonna win. Thankfully it doesn't matter and I still get the win here. Another cool thing about this combo is that you're guaranteed to get any dragon that you want because of Magnemite. I end up always searching Vistia Baldrake, but it never comes up, but it's still always nice to have in your hand. So I was gonna end on 3 duels, but I'll show you one more because there's a really cool combo in that duel. So our final duel is going to be against Mitsurugi, everyone's favorite deck. I know how much you guys love Mitsurugi combo. We're going to start off by activating Dragon Ravine. You're going to send the Imperm because I think it's by far the most useless card here. I would much rather hang on to Ash and Called By, but my opponent does have Droll, which is why I want to hang on to the Called By. Another thing is that this card is still at 2 in the OCG for some reason. I don't think this card should be at higher quantities than 1 ever. I think the card is far too broken to be at multiple copies. Maxi is also another incredibly controversial card. Everyone either loves or hates it. There's pretty much no in between, but luckily I have the Ash here for the Maxi. People always ash my Fuwalos and it feels awful, but being on the other end of this feels pretty good. So now we get the full combo without having to worry about our opponent drawing so many cards. Now just like I said before, any combo in Dragunity that takes up multiple cards now can always do anti-nib. My opponent doesn't end up having the nib here, but I still made a Crystal Wing anyways. I was pretty sure they didn't have nib, but I wanted to be safe than sorry. I still stand by that too, even if your opponent doesn't have the nib. A lot of people will say, oh, just play into the nib, because if your opponent nibs you early, then you just keep comboing. I don't really like that mindset. I think if you can try to stop a hand trap in a certain combo, you should always do it. Dragunity is a deck that already has a lot of different combo options, so just using a couple of resources to make a Crystal Wing isn't going to be the end of your combo. This deck is incredibly good at putting bodies on the field, so I would rather feel safer just always summoning the Crystal Wing, even if my opponent doesn't have the nib. Now this is the cool part about the combo. Because I have Kus and Phalanx here together, I can make Bartra off my Karinas. The best thing about this is that I get to keep Guidra equipped onto Bartra, then I can use Phalanx and Kus to make a Romulus and search for Glow. Now the cool thing about this is that normally you have to use Glow for Mistletoe, summon the Mistletoe and equip Guidra, then use the effect of Glow in the grave to summon the Guidra, but because I have it on Bartra, I can just summon it immediately. That is so cool, and it's pretty nice for card economy. I didn't even know that this combo was possible. I just made it on the fly right now and it worked. It's pretty cool because this combo just came out of nowhere and it's really making me reconsider about Bartra. I still don't think I want to play that card because it feels like win more, but I'll definitely consider it now more than ever. Another cool thing about this combo is that we get to summon Hulk in a main monster zone because we got to keep Romulus. This is awesome because it means we get to summon Georgius in a main monster zone. That means we get to save our extra monster zone for Spears. So this is definitely one of the best combos that I didn't even know Dragunity was capable of. It feels pretty good to do this combo because most of the time you have to tribute Spears for the effect to summon a dragon from your deck because you have to get Magnemite some way. Maybe it's always better just to save the Spears and not get a Bestial that way. Yeah, you're losing out on an interruption, but I still think it's fine. There's honestly a case now in Dragunity where you don't have to play Glow, you don't have to play Mistletoe, and you don't have to play Atum either. I still think you should play those cards though, because I think Atum, Glow, and Mistletoe are too high impact. However, who knows, maybe I could tinker around a build that doesn't use those cards. However, I can definitely say that I'm still really happy with the Dragunity now in their current form. I do know though that some people aren't too happy with all of the new Dragunity cards. I know a lot of people don't like a Roost because the card isn't generic, it needs a Synchro monster as a non-tuner, which is not the easiest thing to do. It's not difficult either, but there's gonna be some times when you have Mistletoe and you won't be able to make a Roost. Then you also have to get a card equipped to it to make this effect and negate a card a quick effect. It takes the worst parts about Desiree because Desiree is just a better card even though they do essentially the same thing. It's just way easier to get a card equipped to Desiree and then Desiree doesn't target either. It's just so much better than a Roost even though a Roost isn't terrible. The most controversial is definitely Divine Wind. A lot of people don't like the card and they don't want to play it at all. The rest of this duel really doesn't matter. My opponent's going to try to activate pre-prep and they're going to try to activate Habakiri. I'm just going to end up negating that stuff, but like I said, I didn't want to show this duel for the duel itself. I wanted to show off this combo. This is insane. You have Savage Dragon, a Reed Bear, Georgia, Spears, Auxilla, Crystal Wing, and your opponent can't activate any monster effects in the grave, as well as a counter trap to stop Dark Ruler. Like I said, the best part is I didn't even know about this combo, I just figured it out right now. So now that this duel is done, let's go back to the deck list and I'll talk more in depth about my deck this time instead of the intro where I just kind of went over it briefly. I definitely have some unique choices here. So like I said before earlier in the video, the biggest difference between my Dragunity build and other people is I'm not playing Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, I don't play Zephyros, I don't play Lubellion, I don't play Safer, I don't play Ringo Worm, I also don't play Arus, I don't play the Tachyon engine. I understand why people play them because the cards are incredibly powerful and if I showcase them in my combo I could definitely make a stronger board. Even though these cards are really strong, they're just massive bricks. You don't have to play Darkness Metal and you don't have to play Zephyros. I understand why people want to play them because they're so strong, but they end up just making your hands even worse. It's so weird to me that people assume that they just never brick in this game. You're playing so many cards that are just dead in your hand that you have to make concessions somewhere. It's the same thing that I think about Dark Ruler. Whenever people make a combo board, they just always assume that every game their opponent will never have Dark Ruler. I don't know why people think that because cards like Dark Ruler No More and Forbidden Droplet are really popular right now, especially with a new card called Forbidden Crown. You cannot play a combo deck in the year 2025 and have no way to stop Dark Ruler No More. In the earlier duel that you saw before, my opponent had Forbidden Droplet and Illusion Gate. If I was not able to negate activate that Forbidden Droplet, I would have lost my entire board. Then Illusion Gate would have destroyed all my monsters, and then they would have taken my best monster, which would be Crystal Wing. That's why it's always safe to have a card that beats Dark Ruler no more in a combo deck. You have to have some way to stop that card because it's far too popular to ignore. Another thing too is that you're seeing I'm playing a ton of hand traps. I really like Nibiru as well. I thought about playing 3 of them, but I think 2 is fine for now. Initially I also had 3 Imperm, but I decided to put in a Veiler and take out one of the Imperms. The reason why was because it was actually relevant in a crossout combo. I had crossout Designator and my opponent had Veiler, but I couldn't stop it. So I decided to make it 2 Imperm and 1 Veiler. It's gonna be worse to have Veiler when my opponent has Called by the Grave, but I think it's gonna be okay. Speaking of Called by the Grave, I don't know why this card is at 2. This should definitely be at 1. There should be no reason why anyone has 2 Called by the Grave and 1 crossout. These cards are just way too strong. Having Called by the Grave whenever I do a combo always makes me feel so safe, and there are some games where I had Called by and crossout in my hand with Carinas. It just feels so good. Even though this feels great for a combo player, I think for the balance of the game, Called by the Grave should always be at 1, same with crossout Designator. I don't think these cards should ever be at higher amounts ever. So now for the Dragunity spells, I'm only playing 1 Glow for obvious reasons, but I'm playing 2 Lance and 2 Divine Wind. I thought about it for a while when I wanted to play 3 Divine Wind, but I think 2 Lance and 2 Divine Wind is better. The reason why was because in testing, Carinas always got hit by a hand trap. I would get hand trapped every time and this card would never resolve. It makes sense too because this card is a starter, not an extender. I always want to start all my combos with this card. It's a lot better than Remus because if your opponent sees Remus and they know you're playing Dragon Ravine, you're going to take a neg if they ash it. This is why it's pretty good to play more than 1 copy of Divine Lance. This is because when Carinas gets hit by a hand trap, you still have a combo if you drew the card. Another thing that's different than my build is I'm playing a ton of hand traps. I have 12 in total, which is way more than most people play. Another thing too about my deck list is I'm playing a lot of hand traps. I have 14 in total. That's way more than other people play, and a lot of people play more than 40 cards. I'm playing 40 exactly. The reason why is because Dragunity doesn't have that many starters, so I want to see Carinas as much as possible. I only have 3 Carinas, 3 Ravine, 3 Remus, and a Terraforming. That's only 10 starter cards. That's not that many in a 40 card deck, so I really don't want to go over 40 either. I'm also incredibly happy playing 14 hand traps. It makes me feel very safe when I have to go second. The hand traps are also especially good when I have to go first and I can't make a board. Other people just play a ton of extenders, but if you get hit by something like Droll or Maxi and you can't stop it, it's going to be really bad. Droll honestly ruins this deck, but there is a Droll combo that's pretty good, but it's not the greatest thing ever. This is why it's so much better to have extra hand traps than extra extenders. If you open extra cards like Zephyrs or Safer and you get hit by Droll, those cards are just useless. If I get hit by Droll and I have cards like Fulos, Nibiru, Ash, Veiler, or Imperm, those are really good cards to have in my hand. They're just a lot higher impact because even though they're not a combo card, they can still help later in the duel. There are a lot of times when I make a subpar board, especially when I get hit by Droll, but I still have a hand trap, so I'm still safe. This is also how the top tier decks play Yu-Gi-Oh as well. Malice isn't the best deck in Master Duel because it combos super heavy and builds the strongest board. What it does is build a modest board, but it also plays a ton of hand traps and has a lot of 1-card combos. This is exactly how I want to play Dragunity. Very few bricks and a ton of hand traps. I've really been enjoying playing the deck this way, and as you guys saw, I always opened at least 2 or 3 hand traps in every hand. I'm very happy, and I feel like this deck has been optimized to a satisfiable point. Even when you look at the OCG, all the top tier decks are playing at least 12 to 15 hand traps. Those decks aren't the best because they combo heavy, they're the best because they're incredibly consistent. This is the mindset I want to take when I build any deck from now on. I'm always going to choose consistency over power. Another thing too is that you're seeing Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon and Baron in my extra deck over Bartra and Ancient Fairy Dragon. Even though I already used those cards, I was changing my deck list as I played each game. I honestly would not play Baron or Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon, but I have 2 free spots and I don't know what I want to use yet. If you're going to copy my deck list, I would recommend putting Ancient Fairy and Bartra as well as Destruder and Kus in the deck. However, at the same time, if I can cut 2 bricks and play 2 other synchros, I think that would be a lot better. There just isn't 2 other synchros that I think are mandatory that I want to play. I really did want to consider some other level 8 synchros that weren't dragons, but the problem is that Remus locking you into dragons comes up quite a bit. There were some duels that were just awful where I would just combo my opponent because they didn't open a hand trap. I really didn't want to show a duel like that because it would be very boring. I think a lot of the duels I showcased were pretty cool. You got to see a lot of different Dragunity combos. Not only that, you also got to see me almost lose to Tellarknight FTK. I think that deck is incredibly stupid and very consistent, way too consistent for my liking. They really do have to ban Ptolemy because that Tellarknight FTK is way too good. Anyways, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good one. Take care.